Hi guys, and welcome to Boring History Secrets channel. Tonight, we walk into a medieval town just as the sun slips away and the sky bruises purple over crooked rooftops. You stand on uneven stones that still hold the day's warmth, and the air smells like wood smoke, damp wool, and something sour you cannot quite name yet. Somewhere nearby, a bell finishes ringing curfew, its last note trembling like it is tired too. You pull your cloak closer, already learning the first rule of this world. Nothing is clean, nothing is quiet, and nothing survives without work that would make you hesitate for even a moment. You probably will not survive this, at least not comfortably. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you are listening from somewhere far away, maybe tucked into bed right now, drop a comment with your location and local time. Now, dim the lights and stay right where you are. The story does not pause, it simply keeps walking. You move forward into the narrow street, guided by torchlight that flickers against timbered walls. Above you, upper floors lean inward, as if gossiping across the road. Somewhere overhead, a chamber pot empties with careless confidence, splashing into the gutter with a sound that makes you instinctively step aside. That reflex matters here. One mainstream historical fact settles in immediately. Medieval towns lacked organized sanitation systems, and waste flowed through open channels down the center of streets. You are not being dramatic when you avoid the gutter. You are being alive. The sounds wrap around you. Leather creaks as someone passes. A donkey snorts. A distant hammer rings against metal, even at this hour, because deadlines do not respect darkness. You notice how many people are still awake, still working. Bakers finish their last loaves before dawn. Watchmen pace the walls. And then there are the others, the ones whose jobs do not come with shop signs or guild pride. Their work waits until night because daylight would invite too many questions. You inhale again and catch that sour note more clearly now. It is human waste, animal dung, rotting vegetables, and spilled ale, all blending together. A quirky tidbit drifts through your mind. In some towns, pigs roam freely, acting as living garbage disposals. Children know to dodge them as carefully as carts. They grunt past you now, snouts low, doing a job nobody thanks them for. Even animals have occupations here. You keep walking, and the street narrows into something more intimate, more confining. The torchlight reveals faces briefly, then lets them vanish again. You notice how people avert their eyes from certain doorways, how respect and disgust share the same space. Jobs in this world are not just tasks, they are identities. They decide where you live, who you marry, how close others stand to you. Historians still argue whether social stigma attached more strongly to the work itself or to the physical proximity such labor had to filth, death, and bodily reality. You do not need to resolve that debate tonight. You can feel it under your boots. A man passes carrying a bucket with a lid tied down by rope. He walks carefully, shoulders tight, as if every step requires concentration. You realize this is not fear, it is professionalism. Spilling would mean ridicule at best, and punishment at worst. In many medieval towns, fines are issued for making the streets dirtier than they already are. The irony would make you laugh if it were not so precarious. You pause near a crossroads where a shrine glows faintly with candlelight. Someone has left bread there. Maybe for the saints, maybe for luck. Faith clings to everything here because so little is predictable. Disease arrives without warning. Fire leaps from roof to roof in minutes. A single bad harvest can hollow a town. Work becomes the thin line between survival and disappearance. That is why these strange jobs exist at all. They are not curiosities yet. They are necessities. The ground under your feet feels damp. Rain earlier has mixed with whatever the gutter carried, creating a slick film that reflects torchlight like oil. You adjust your pace. You learn quickly. That learning is another quiet truth. Medieval people adapt fast because they must. Childhood ends early. Labor begins as soon as hands can grip and carry. There is no concept of a useless job. Even the most unpleasant role serves a purpose. You hear voices ahead, low and murmuring. Two figures stand near a wooden hatch set into the street itself. They speak briefly, exchange a coin, and one lifts the hatch just long enough to empty his bucket. The smell blooms, then settles again, absorbed into the larger night. You understand something important now. This town breathes differently after dark. Its lungs open, its hidden systems work. Another historical fact slides into place. Many medieval cities enforce curfews not just for safety, but to control movement, trade, and labor. Certain jobs are legally restricted to nighttime hours. That law does not make them less real, it only pushes them into shadow. You are walking through the bloodstream of the city, not the face it shows during market hours. You think, briefly, of your own world, of trash collection trucks humming before sunrise, of sewage pipes hidden under pavement. The comparison is comforting and unsettling at the same time. The difference is not the existence of unpleasant work, it is how visible it feels when you are standing here, smelling it, hearing it, knowing the person beside you cannot simply go home and shower it away. A breeze slips through the street, carrying the distant sound of laughter from a tavern. Life continues in pockets. Joy does not vanish just because conditions are harsh. You notice how the laughter fades quickly, swallowed by stone and wood. Night compresses everything. It makes the world feel smaller, closer, harder to escape. You realize that tonight is not about kings or battles. It is about the people who keep those stories possible. The ones who clean, haul, scrape, burn, shout, test, and risk themselves so others can pretend not to think about it. You are about to meet them, one by one, not as curiosities, but as companions on this walk. You take another step forward, deeper into the town, already sensing that the strangest jobs are not strange at all once you understand the need behind them. They are simply human responses to a difficult world. You keep moving, and the street slopes downward, away from the faint warmth of taverns, and toward a quieter, heavier part of town. The air thickens here. It presses against your face, damp and sour, as if the ground itself is breathing out. You hear it before you see it. The soft scrape of wood on stone, the slow slosh of liquid that should never slosh. This is where the gong farmers work. You stop near the edge of a courtyard where several wooden privies stand in a row, their doors warped and swollen from years of use. Beneath them, hidden from polite conversation, are pits that collect everything a household produces and never wants to see again. A mainstream historical fact settles into place. In medieval cities, human waste was stored in cesspits and had to be removed by hand, usually at night, by specialized laborers. These men are those laborers. One of them crouches now, lantern hooked to a nail, its flame trembling as he lifts a heavy lid. The smell hits you fully this time, sharp and eye-watering, but you do not step back. You stay. You watch. That feels important. The man lowers a bucket carefully, not rushing, not grimacing. He has done this before. He will do it again tomorrow night. When he hauls it up, muscles straining under rough wool, you notice how methodical he is. Spilling is not just unpleasant. It can bring fines, lawsuits, even violence from angry neighbors. You learn another truth quietly. This job is dangerous. Toxic gases can build up in cesspits. Workers sometimes collapse without warning. People know this. That knowledge does not stop the work. It only makes the men cautious, superstitious, precise. A quirky tidbit drifts in. Some gong farmers reportedly kept candles close to the pit opening. If the flame flickered or went out, they knew the air below could kill them. The lantern light catches his face as he straightens. He looks tired, older than his years. Gong farmers often live on the edges of town, not by choice, but by pressure. Their work keeps everyone healthier, yet they are treated as unclean, avoided in daylight. Historians still argue whether this social distance was driven more by fear of disease or by moral disgust tied to bodily waste. Standing here, it feels like both. You notice another man nearby, waiting with a cart. The wheels are wrapped in leather to muffle sound. Night work values quiet. Noise draws attention. Attention draws complaints. Complaints draw fines. The bucket is emptied into a larger barrel, sealed carefully. Tomorrow, it will be hauled beyond the walls. The waste will fertilize fields, feeding crops that return as bread. The circle is unbroken, even if nobody wants to think about it. You think about how this work fits into the rhythm of the town. People wake to cleaner courtyards. They thank God for health and good fortune. They do not thank the men who made that possible. You feel a small tightening in your chest, a modern sympathy sliding backward through time. The ground here is slick. You adjust your footing again, learning the posture of survival. The gong farmer wipes his hands on straw, then on his trousers. There is no soap waiting, no clean water nearby. Another historical fact surfaces gently. Soap exists in the medieval world, but it is expensive and not commonly used for personal hygiene. Cleanliness is relative. Enough is enough. As you walk alongside the cart for a moment, the wood creaks softly. The smell follows you like a shadow. You realize this job pays better than many. It has to. Few volunteer for it. Money compensates where honor does not. That detail complicates the picture. Disgust and necessity wrestle constantly here. You glance up at the darkened windows above. Families sleep, unaware of how close this labor is to their dreams. You imagine a child waking briefly to the sound of wheels, then drifting back to sleep. That child might grow up to mock these men in daylight, or might join them out of need. The line is thin. A pause stretches. The work continues without ceremony. No prayers, no speeches, just motion. Lift, pour, seal, move on. The repetition feels almost meditative. There is something oddly calming about watching a task done well, even when it is unpleasant. You notice how the night seems to absorb the smell better than day would. Cool air carries it away, dilutes it. That is not an accident. Town laws often mandate that cesspits be emptied after dark. Practicality shapes morality here. Decency follows convenience. The cart rolls forward, and you step aside, letting it pass. As it does, you catch one last whiff, then cleaner air replaces it. You feel relief, and then a flicker of guilt for feeling relieved. Someone else will breathe that smell for hours more. You turn back toward the street you came from, carrying with you the understanding that survival depends on people willing to do what others cannot. The night has more of these figures waiting for you. You drift onward as the cart disappears, and the street slowly lifts again, climbing toward a cluster of low buildings with wide doors and shuttered windows. The smell changes here. It is still sharp, but warmer, almost fermented. It clings to your clothes the way damp air does after rain. You hear splashing, not frantic, but steady, rhythmic, like slow footsteps through shallow water. This is the territory of the Fullers. You stop at the threshold of an open workshop. Inside, men and women stand knee-deep in large wooden vats. Their trousers are rolled high, their tunics hitched up without ceremony. They stamp and shift their weight, over and over, working thick cloth beneath the surface. The liquid looks cloudy, pale, and slightly foamy. You already know what it is, or at least part of it. Surviving craft manuals confirm that fullers used stale human urine to treat woolen cloth, relying on the ammonia to clean and thicken the fibers. You wrinkle your nose instinctively, then relax again. The smell is strong, but not hostile. It is the smell of work being done properly. Wool fresh off the loom is greasy with lanolin and dirt. Without this process, it would never become the sturdy, weather-resistant fabric people depend on. Cloaks, blankets, hose, all pass through vats like these before they ever touch skin. One of the workers notices you watching. He does not smile, but he does not scowl either. He shifts his stance and continues stamping. The motion is slow, deliberate, almost hypnotic. Step, press, turn. Step, press, turn. The sound of liquid sloshing gently against wood fills the room, accompanied by low conversation and the occasional laugh. Even here, surrounded by the byproducts of human bodies, there is camaraderie. You learn another grounded truth. Towns often regulate where fulling can take place because of the smell. Workshops are pushed toward the edges of residential areas or near rivers where water is plentiful. Some cities even build communal fulling mills powered by water wheels to reduce the labor. The work is essential, but it is rarely welcome nearby. A lesser-known detail drifts into your awareness. Households sometimes save urine specifically for fullers, storing it in jars and selling it for a small fee. Children are sent to collect it. What feels embarrassing to you feels practical here. Nothing useful is wasted. You step inside the workshop, careful not to splash. The floor is slick, worn smooth by years of traffic. Wooden beams overhead are darkened by moisture and steam. You can feel the humidity settle on your skin, warm and heavy. It is easy to imagine working here for hours, muscles aching, feet numb, mind drifting. There is disagreement among scholars about how much fulling was done by foot versus with tools like paddles or mechanical hammers. Evidence varies by region and century. What does not change is the physical intimacy of the job. Cloth is not treated at a distance. It is handled, trampled, squeezed, and coaxed into strength through contact. You notice a pile of finished fabric stacked near the wall. It looks transformed, denser, softer, more uniform. You reach out and touch it. It is warm from the room, and surprisingly pleasant. That is the quiet magic of this job. The process is unpleasant. The result is comfort. A woman nearby wrings out a length of cloth, twisting it with practiced ease. Water drips back into the vat in slow, patient streams. Her arms are strong. Her expression is calm. This is not misery. It is routine. That realization settles over you like a blanket. You think of how clothing signals status in this world. Color, thickness, quality, all speak before a person opens their mouth. Fullers sit at the hidden heart of that language. Without them, fine garments would not exist, yet they rarely share in the prestige their work enables. The smell follows you as you step back outside, but it fades quickly in the cooler night air. You realize your tolerance has already shifted. What shocked you earlier now feels manageable. This place is teaching you recalibration. A breeze carries laughter from deeper in the workshop, a joke passed between stamps. Life continues, even ankle-deep in fermented liquid. You move on, understanding now that medieval survival is built not just on strength or faith, but on an unflinching relationship with the physical realities of the body. The street ahead darkens again, leading you toward water and reeds. Another job waits there, one that will pull you even closer to the boundary between usefulness and discomfort. The road slopes gently toward the edge of town, and the stone beneath your feet gives way to packed earth. Reeds whisper in the dark ahead, their thin bodies clicking together as if sharing secrets. The air cools noticeably, damp with the scent of mud and stagnant water. Frogs croak in uneven rhythm, and insects hum just above the surface. You have reached the marshland, a place most townspeople avoid unless necessity pulls them here. Tonight, necessity has a name: leech collectors. You step closer to the water's edge, careful where you place your feet. The ground looks solid until it is not. A woman stands knee-deep in the shallows, skirts hitched high, bare legs pale in the moonlight. She is perfectly still, too still. Only her eyes move, scanning the surface of the water. From surviving medical texts, you know that leeches are widely used in medieval medicine, believed to rebalance the body by removing excess blood. Demand is constant. Supply requires patience. You feel a faint chill as you watch her lower her leg a little deeper. Tiny ripples spread outward. It does not take long. She inhales sharply, then exhales, steadying herself. You know what she feels before you see it. A soft, almost delicate pull. Another. The leeches attach silently, drawn by warmth and blood. This is not accidental. Her body is the bait. You notice a small basket floating nearby, tethered with string. Inside, dark shapes writhe slowly, already fed and ready for transport. Apothecaries will pay well for them. Physicians will prescribe them confidently. Patients will trust them. Few will think about this marsh, or the person standing in it at night. An often overlooked detail surfaces. Some collectors use livestock instead, wading cows or horses into the water to attract leeches. Human legs are more precise. They allow careful harvesting without crushing the creatures. That precision matters. A healthy leech can be reused multiple times. There is ongoing disagreement among historians about how widespread professional leech collecting truly was versus household gathering. Evidence suggests both existed, depending on region and proximity to wetlands. What is clear is that this work carries risk. Infections are possible. Cold seeps into bones. Balance is uncertain, yet the job persists because medicine demands it. You watch as the woman gently detaches each leech, using her fingernail with practiced ease. She drops them into the basket without flinching. Her movements are efficient, almost tender. This is not revulsion. This is expertise. You realize that fear fades when repetition teaches control. The marsh sounds grow louder as you stand there longer. Water laps softly against her calves. A bird startles somewhere in the reeds, wings beating briefly before settling again. The night feels alive, watching you watch her. You feel very still yourself, as if movement might break the spell. Medical belief in this era rests on the balance of humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. Too much of one means illness. Removing blood is thought to restore harmony. Whether it works is another matter, one still discussed in academic circles today. But belief shapes action. Action shapes labour. Labour shapes lives. You notice scars on her legs, small and pale, each marking a previous bite. They are not hidden. They do not need to be. This work does not rely on secrecy, only tolerance. Towns may look down on it, but they depend on it all the same. A faint breeze ripples the water's surface, and the leeches pause, sensing change. She waits, patient. You sense the rhythm of her nights. Wade, stand, collect. Warm hands afterward by a fire, sleep through morning light while others work. Every job here rearranges time itself. You step back as she lifts the basket from the water, tying it closed with a practiced knot. She wades toward shore, water streaming from her skin, leaving dark patches on the mud. She does not look at you. She does not need to. This is not a performance. It is a transaction between body and environment. As you turn away from the marsh, your legs feel strangely heavy, as if echoing her stillness. You carry with you the understanding that medicine here is not clean or distant. It is gathered with bare skin, in cold water, under an indifferent moon. The path ahead curves back toward town, toward walls and stone and human noise. The work waiting there is different, but the principle remains the same. Survival asks for closeness to things you might prefer to avoid. You leave the marsh behind, boots heavier with damp, and follow a narrow track back toward the town walls. The sound changes first. Frogs and insects fade, replaced by the softer but more unsettling noises of civilization at rest. Something skitters along stone, something squeaks, then vanishes. You smell grain, spilled and stale, mixed with the familiar undercurrent of refuse. This is where the rat catchers work, long after respectable doors have closed. You pause near a granary, whose thick wooden doors are barred from the outside. A faint rustling moves behind the planks, like dry leaves stirred by breath. Grain stores are life itself in this world. Bread means survival through winter. Anything that threatens it becomes an enemy. Town records make it clear that rats are more than a nuisance. They destroy food, undermine foundations, and spread illness. Eliminating them is a public necessity, even if nobody wants to watch how it is done. A figure steps out of the shadows carrying a small sack and a long stick with a looped cord at the end. He moves quietly, not sneaking, but economical. He knows this terrain. You notice his boots first. The leather is thick and scarred, reinforced at the toes. He taps the ground lightly as he walks, listening as much as looking. Rats appear suddenly, bold in darkness. One darts from a crack in the wall, whiskers twitching. The catcher reacts instantly. The loop tightens. The movement is quick, practiced, almost gentle. The animal does not suffer long. He drops it into the sack and resets the cord without pause. This is not cruelty. It is efficiency, shaped by necessity. You recall a detail from municipal ordinances. Many towns pay bounties for rats, measured by tails or heads. Proof matters. Fraud exists. Some people attempt to breed rats to collect rewards. Authorities respond by adjusting payments, always reacting, always behind. Control is a constant negotiation. The rat catcher moves on, checking traps set earlier. Small wooden boxes baited with scraps. A metal snap echoes briefly, sharp in the quiet. He winces at the sound, not from regret, but from worry that it will draw attention. Night work prefers silence. You follow at a respectful distance, noticing how he avoids puddles and keeps to raised stones. He knows where waste collects, where disease lingers. There is no romantic ignorance here. Survival comes from observation. An unsettling note drifts into your thoughts. Some chroniclers connect rat populations to outbreaks of plague, though the exact mechanisms remain debated. Fleas, bacteria, climate, trade routes. The picture is complex and still discussed today. What is not disputed is the fear. When sickness comes, rat catchers are suddenly in demand, both blamed and relied upon. You watch him pause near a bakery. The smell of yesterday's bread still clings to the doorway. He kneels, lifting a sack of grain slightly to inspect the floor beneath. Droppings scatter like dark rice. He clicks his tongue softly, a sound meant to startle rats into motion. It works. 2 bolt for the wall. 1 escapes, 1 does not. He straightens slowly, stretching his back. The sack at his side shifts faintly. You do not look inside. You do not need to. The weight tells the story. A lesser-known practice surfaces in your mind. Some rat catchers keep terriers or ferrets trained for this work, sending them into tight spaces humans cannot reach. Animals become colleagues, not pets. Their lives are measured in usefulness as much as affection. You notice how people react when they pass him, even at night. A shutter closes. A figure turns away. Fear and gratitude share the same gesture. Rat catchers occupy an uncomfortable place, necessary, yet associated with filth and death. The smell of their work follows them, no matter how carefully they wash. You think of how this role shapes identity. Children may inherit it, learning traps before letters. Others fall into it after injury or loss closes more respectable doors. There is no single path here, only narrowed choices. The catcher pauses at a well, rinsing his hands briefly in a bucket left for animals. He does not linger. Water is precious. Clean water even more so. He wipes his hands on his trousers and moves on, already scanning the ground ahead. The night deepens. Clouds drift across the moon, dimming the street. You feel the town breathing in its sleep, vulnerable and unaware. Somewhere a rat squeals, high and sharp, then silence returns. The sound lingers in your ears longer than you expect. You realize something subtle. This job is not about extermination. It is about management. Rats never disappear completely. The goal is balance, not victory. That understanding feels strangely modern. As the catcher disappears down an alley too narrow for you to follow, you slow your pace. The street ahead widens again, leading toward the center of town. Torches burn brighter there. Authority lives closer to light. Another profession waits, one tied not to vermin, but to law and order, and to a kind of skill that demands absolute precision. You walk on, carrying with you the quiet knowledge that even the smallest lives can shape the fate of cities, and that those who deal with them live in constant negotiation with fear. You move closer to the heart of town now, where the streets widen and the stones feel more deliberately laid. Torches burn steadier here, mounted in iron brackets, their light falling on walls marked with symbols of authority. The air smells cleaner, though only by comparison. Smoke replaces rot, metal replaces damp earth. You hear voices ahead, low and serious, and the clink of armor shifting with weight. This is where justice lives, or at least where it presents itself. You slow as you approach a small open square. At its center stands a wooden platform, plain and functional. It looks harmless in the half-light, almost forgettable. During the day, children may play near it. Merchants may pass without glancing twice. At certain moments, though, it becomes the most watched place in town. You already know who works here: the executioner. He stands a little apart from the others, checking his tools with methodical calm. There is no flourish, no drama, just routine. Records from town councils show that executioners were often formally employed officials, paid salaries, and sometimes granted housing as part of their contract. This is not mob violence, it is administration. You watch him test the weight of a sword, adjusting his grip slightly. His hands are steady. That steadiness is the core of his profession. A clean strike is not just merciful, it protects his reputation. A botched execution brings shame, punishment, even dismissal. Skill matters here as much as strength. You notice how others keep their distance, not wide enough to suggest fear alone, but enough to mark separation. Executioners occupy a strange social space. They enforce the law, yet are often shunned socially. In some towns, they marry within their own families or within a small circle of similarly employed households. Touching death regularly leaves a mark that others prefer not to share. A detail surfaces that many people find surprising. Executioners often perform other tasks, considered impure, such as removing animal carcasses, cleaning city ditches, or torturing prisoners for confessions. These duties cluster together, not because of cruelty, but because society groups all unpleasant necessities under the same hands. You hear a murmur behind you. Two townspeople speak quietly, their words edged with curiosity and discomfort. Public punishment serves as deterrence, education, and spectacle. Whether it truly reduced crime is something scholars continue to debate. What it certainly did was reinforce authority through visibility. Power here is meant to be seen. The executioner finishes his inspection and covers the blade carefully. He looks up briefly, his eyes scanning the square, not lingering on anyone. There is no arrogance in his posture, only readiness. He knows that tomorrow, or the next day, this place will fill with noise and bodies and judgment. Tonight, it is quiet, and that quiet feels heavy. You imagine the weight of this job settling into a person over years. The precision required, the emotional distance cultivated, the knowledge that your work ends lives, even when sanctioned. Some accounts suggest executioners developed rituals or prayers to cope. Others imply numbness. The truth likely varies, shifting from person to person. You notice the platform's surface, scarred and smoothed by use. Wood remembers pressure. It holds the history of feet, knees, bodies. Rain will wash it clean. Time will darken it again. The cycle continues. A bell rings once in the distance, marking another hour surrendered to night. The guards begin to disperse. The executioner gathers his tools and turns away. Heading toward a street, that leads not to taverns or markets, but to quieter quarters. You do not follow. Some paths feel closed by more than walls. As you step back into motion, you realize something subtle. Justice here is not abstract. It is manual. It relies on people willing to perform acts others only imagine. That reliance shapes everyone involved, even those who never attend an execution. You leave the square behind, the torchlight thinning again as you move away from authority and toward shadow. The night still has many professions to show you, some less visible, some quieter, some wrapped in ritual rather than law. Your footsteps echo softly as you walk, carrying with you the understanding that order in this world is maintained not just by rules, but by individuals who bear the weight of enforcing them. You move away from the square, and the air shifts again, becoming softer, almost reverent. The stone buildings here feel older, heavier, their walls thick with memory. Candlelight flickers in narrow windows, not from taverns, but from homes where voices have lowered to whispers. Death has visited recently. You can feel it in the way the street seems to hold its breath. You pause outside a modest house, where a single candle burns on a small table near the door. A loaf of bread rests beside it, along with a cup of ale. No one stands guard. No priest chants prayers. Yet this moment matters deeply to the people inside. This is the work of the Sin Eater. You step closer, careful not to intrude. Through the cracked door, you glimpse a simple room. A body lies still, washed and wrapped, hands folded. Beside it sits a man you would not notice on the street. His clothes are plain. His posture is humble. He reaches for the bread, eats slowly, then drinks. With that act, he symbolically absorbs the sins of the dead, freeing the soul for its journey beyond. Parish records and folklore alike describe this practice in parts of England and Wales. It is not universal, and church authorities often disapprove of it, seeing it as superstition. Yet, the custom persists, passed quietly from generation to generation, because it offers comfort where doctrine feels distant. You notice how carefully the Sin Eater performs each movement. There is no rush. This is not hunger. It is ritual. The food tastes ordinary, but the meaning attached to it is heavy. By accepting payment, often a few coins left discreetly on the table, he takes on spiritual risk in the eyes of the community. A lesser-known detail lingers in your thoughts. Sin Eaters are often feared as much as they are needed. People believe they carry the moral weight of many lives within them. They may be avoided, shunned, or treated with uneasy respect. Children are warned not to mock them. Adults hesitate to invite them into their homes, except at the moment of greatest need. There is disagreement among historians about how literally people believed this transfer of sin occurred. Some argue it was symbolic comfort. Others suggest genuine fear of spiritual contamination. What remains consistent is the emotional function. Grief demands structure. Ritual gives shape to loss. The candle flickers as someone inside exhales shakily. A hand reaches out to close the door gently, leaving the Sin Eater alone with his task. You step back, feeling the weight of quiet settle around you. The night seems thicker here, wrapped in respect. You imagine what it must feel like to carry this role through life, to be summoned only at moments of death, to be paid to take on what others cannot face. Faith and fear intertwine in ways that offer no clean escape. The Sin Eater finishes, wipes his hands, and rises. He does not linger. He leaves the house without looking back, walking into the darkness with measured steps. There is no blessing spoken over him, no thanks allowed. Gratitude here is silent. You follow at a distance as he turns down a narrow lane, one that leads away from the center, away from light. His work pulls him always toward the edges. That pattern feels familiar now. The smell of bread lingers briefly in the air, warm and comforting, then fades. You realize that not all strange medieval jobs involve filth or danger. Some deal in belief itself, in the unseen weight people carry and hope to set down. As you continue walking, your pace slows. The night feels gentler after witnessing this quiet exchange. Death remains present, but softened by care. The next job waiting for you will return to the physical world again, to labor that stains hands and clothes, but this moment stays with you, like a held breath finally released. You move on, carrying the image of a single candle in the dark, and the knowledge that even in a harsh world, people find ways to comfort one another. You drift onward, leaving the hushed lane behind, and the scent of bread gives way to something sharper, heavier, and unmistakably animal. The ground underfoot becomes gritty, mixed with ash and lime. The buildings here sit farther apart, as if the town itself has stepped back in discomfort. This is no accident. You have reached the tanner's quarter. Even before you see them, you know what happens here. The smell announces it. Rotting flesh, soaked hides, acrid chemicals, and stagnant water mingle into something that clings to the back of your throat. You slow your breathing without realizing it. Many medieval towns push tanning operations beyond their walls or downwind for good reason. City charters and ordinances repeatedly complain about this trade, even while depending on it completely. You approach a long, low building with open sides. Inside, hides hang from beams like heavy curtains. Some are stiff and pale, others dark and slick, all in different stages of transformation. Men work with knives, scraping away hair and fat with practiced strokes. The sound is rhythmic, almost soothing, if you do not think too closely about what is being removed. Leather is everywhere in medieval life. Shoes, belts, armor straps, book bindings, water skins. None of it exists without this place. Yet the people who work here are often treated as socially tainted. Tanners handle death daily. Animal death? Yes, but death all the same. That proximity matters deeply in a world where purity is both physical and moral. You notice pits dug into the earth, filled with cloudy liquid. Lime burns in some of them, loosening hair and flesh. Others hold mixtures of dung, urine, and water used to soften the hides. A fact preserved in trade records explains why this work is so hazardous. Lime can burn skin and eyes, and prolonged exposure damages lungs. Many tanners suffer chronic illness or shortened lives. A small but unsettling detail comes to mind. In some regions, dog dung is preferred for certain stages of tanning because of its enzymatic properties. Children sometimes collect it from streets and kennels, selling it to tanners by the sack. Even here, supply chains form around necessity. There is scholarly disagreement about how rigidly tanners were excluded from polite society. Some evidence suggests they could rise to modest prosperity, even civic roles, while other sources describe deep social isolation. The reality likely shifts from town to town. What does not change is the smell. It follows them everywhere, no matter how carefully they wash. You watch a worker lower a hide into a pit, pushing it down with a wooden pole. He does not flinch when the liquid splashes. His hands are scarred, thickened, permanently marked. This work reshapes the body as surely as it reshapes skin. The river nearby moves slowly, its surface dull and lifeless near the tannery outflow. Downstream, people complain of dead fish and foul water. Authorities issue fines, then look the other way. Leather is too important to ban. Compromise becomes policy. You step back, giving the building space. Your eyes sting slightly. The night air feels cleaner just a few paces away. You understand now why people speak of this job with a mixture of contempt and reliance. The discomfort is built into the trade. As you leave the tanners behind, you carry with you the awareness that civilization is stitched together with materials born in places most would rather not visit. The next road leads you outward again, away from walls and toward fields, where waste becomes value in a different form. You follow the road as it slips beyond the last clustered houses and into open ground. The town exhales behind you, its smells thinning, replaced by cooler air and the faint sweetness of grass. The sky feels wider here. Stars peek through drifting clouds. Somewhere ahead, a cart creaks slowly, its wheels complaining with every turn. This is the domain of night soil traders. You draw closer and see the cart more clearly. It is piled high with sealed barrels, their lids bound tight with rope and pitch. The smell is familiar now, though less sharp than before. Time and distance soften it. These barrels carry what the town produces in abundance, and once gone, out here, it becomes something valuable. Documents from rural estates show that human waste is prized as fertilizer. Fields fed with it yield stronger crops, grain grows taller, soil holds moisture longer. Farmers know this. They pay for it. The night soil trade links city and countryside in a quiet, essential exchange. A man walks beside the cart, lantern swinging low. His pace is steady, unhurried. This is not a job for speed. Spills mean loss of profit and endless cleanup. He stops occasionally to check bindings, tightening ropes with practiced hands. You notice how careful he is with the barrels, how he treats them almost gently. Value demands respect. An overlooked detail surfaces. Some traders specialize in waste from wealthier households, believing it richer due to diet. Whether that belief holds true is uncertain, but the market reflects it. Even refuse develops hierarchy. There is debate among agricultural historians about how widespread night soil use was compared to animal manure. Regional differences are significant. What is clear is that recycling nutrients is not a modern idea. It is necessity refined into practice. You walk alongside for a time, listening to the cartwheels and the soft thud of hooves. The road feels peaceful despite its cargo. Crickets sing. The smell fades into the background, no longer demanding attention. Your senses adapt again. The trader tells no stories. He nods once when you pass, then focuses forward. His work bridges worlds that rarely meet directly. City dwellers sleep cleaner, farmers harvest fuller. He occupies the space between. When the road forks, the cart turns toward darker fields. You stop and watch until the lantern becomes a small, moving star against the night. Then you turn back toward town, already sensing the next shift in atmosphere waiting for you. You return to the town just as the night begins to loosen its grip. Somewhere far off, a rooster tests its voice and fails, then tries again. The streets feel different now, less secretive, less heavy. You smell yeast and smoke drifting from open doorways. This is the hour when alewives begin to assert their presence. You pause outside a tavern whose shutters are still half closed. Light spills out anyway, warm and golden, carrying laughter and the low hum of voices that never quite went to sleep. Inside, barrels line the walls, their wood darkened by years of spillage. A woman stands near the center, hands on her hips, watching a man drain a cup with narrowed eyes. Ale is safer than water here. Brewing kills pathogens, and even weak beer offers hydration without the risk of illness. Household accounts show that ale is consumed daily by adults and children alike. Because of this, quality matters. Spoiled ale means sickness, anger, sometimes riots. Alewives, often women working from their own homes, guard their reputations fiercely. The woman steps forward and takes the cup back, sniffing it. Her expression shifts, just slightly. She reaches for a wooden stool and lifts it high, then sets it down firmly in the center of the room. This is not furniture. It is a tool. In many towns, a traditional test for ale quality involves pouring some onto a bench and sitting in it. If the drinker sticks when standing, the ale is considered properly strong. A detail tucked into local law makes you smile. Alewives sometimes wear tall hats so customers can spot them in crowded markets. Over time, these hats become symbols, misunderstood later by generations who forget their origin. What begins as practicality slowly turns into myth. Town regulations list fines for selling weak or sour ale. Officials known as ale tasters roam from tavern to tavern, enforcing standards. Whether these inspections truly protect consumers or simply collect fees is a matter still discussed among historians. What matters here is that trust is built one cup at a time. You watch as the woman nods, satisfied. The man laughs, relieved, and pays without complaint. Reputation is currency. In a world without branding or labels, word of mouth shapes survival. As you step away, the tavern door swings wider, welcoming the early morning crowd. You carry with you the understanding that even comfort needs guardians, and that some of the strangest jobs revolve not around danger, but around ensuring small daily pleasures remain safe. The street ahead brightens slightly, and you move on, following the quiet rhythm of a town waking up, one careful task at a time. You drift onward as the tavern noise fades behind you, and the street narrows again, bending toward the churchyard. Dawn is still undecided. The sky lightens slightly, but shadows cling stubbornly to the ground. The air here feels cooler, touched with damp grass and old stone. You slow your steps without quite meaning to. This is a place where people lower their voices out of habit. Rows of headstones rise unevenly from the earth, some leaning, some half sunk, their inscriptions softened by time and weather. A low wall surrounds the yard, more symbolic than protective. Beyond it, houses press close, as if comforted by proximity to the dead. You notice movement near the far edge, subtle and careful. A man works there with a shovel, his movements quiet and efficient. He pauses often, listening, scanning the street before continuing. This is not maintenance. This is extraction. He is what later centuries will call a resurrection man. Medical learning is changing during this period. Universities and barber surgeons seek human bodies to understand anatomy more accurately. Official supply is limited, often restricted to executed criminals. Demand outpaces legality. As a result, grave robbing becomes a shadow profession, tolerated unofficially and condemned loudly. You watch as the man loosens soil near a recent grave, lifting it away in controlled scoops. He works quickly, but not carelessly. Damage lowers value. A body meant for study must arrive intact. He wipes sweat from his brow and adjusts the lantern beside him, keeping the light low. An unsettling detail surfaces. Many resurrection men prefer fresh graves, not for morbid reasons, but because the soil is looser and easier to move. They often leave clothing behind, knowing that stealing shrouds brings harsher punishment than stealing bodies. The law focuses on property, not flesh. There is disagreement among historians about how communities truly felt about this practice. Public outrage is common in sermons and pamphlets, yet private arrangements sometimes exist between medical schools and those willing to look the other way. Curiosity and fear pull in opposite directions. The man pauses as a breeze rattles leaves overhead. For a moment, everything stills. Then he resumes, lifting a wrapped form just enough to secure it with rope. The motion is practiced, almost respectful. This is commerce, but it is also caution. The dead still command unease. You notice how the church looms silently nearby, its presence both watchful and helpless. Theology struggles to keep pace with scientific hunger. Bodies become contested ground between belief and inquiry. The man covers the disturbed earth carefully, smoothing it as best he can. From a distance, the grave will look untouched. Appearances matter. By morning, mourners may visit without knowing what has been taken. As he slips away with his burden, moving toward a waiting cart hidden beyond the wall, you feel a chill that has nothing to do with temperature. Knowledge advances here, not through clean lines, but through moral fog. You step back from the churchyard, the faint light of morning now clearer. Birds begin to stir. Life continues around absence. You carry with you the uneasy sense that progress often arrives quietly, long before society decides how it feels about it. The road ahead pulls you toward daylight and toward roles less hidden, though no less strange. You move back toward the center as morning gathers confidence. The sky pales from grey to soft blue, and the town stretches itself awake. Shutters open, footsteps multiply. The smell of bread returns, warmer now, joined by smoke and damp wool. In the growing light, one figure stands out, not because of brightness, but because of colour and sound. Small bells chime with each step. A court jester crosses the square. You slow, curious. He wears motley, a patchwork of cloth stitched in bold contrast. His cap ends in soft points, each tipped with a bell that announces his presence before he speaks. Children trail him at a distance, laughing. Adults smile carefully, already aware that laughter here can carry consequences. Court jesters occupy a peculiar role. Household accounts from noble estates show they are paid retainers, often living within castle walls. Their task is not simply entertainment. They speak when others cannot. They mock, question, and expose through humour what would otherwise be dangerous to say plainly. You watch as the jester stops near a group of townspeople and launches into a story. His voice rises and falls theatrically. He stumbles on purpose, then recovers, drawing laughter. Then, tucked between jokes, he delivers a sharp observation about rising taxes or a recent decree. The laughter shifts, becoming thoughtful. The message lands safely, wrapped in play. A detail from court life often surprises people. Some jesters are highly educated, fluent in multiple languages, trained in music or poetry. Others are chosen because they are physically different, their bodies already marking them as outside social norms. In both cases, their difference becomes protection. They are allowed to cross boundaries others cannot. There is discussion among scholars about whether jesters truly wielded influence or merely offered the illusion of it. Evidence suggests both existed. Some enjoyed genuine trust from their patrons. Others served as pressure valves, letting frustration escape without changing outcomes. Standing here, you sense that impact depends as much on the listener as the speaker. The jester catches your eye briefly and bows, exaggerated and playful. Then he spins away, bells ringing softly. His laughter lingers in the square even after he leaves, lightening the air. You realize that this job, strange as it seems, requires sharp awareness, timing, insight, emotional intelligence. One wrong word can end protection instantly. Humor becomes armor, but thin armor all the same. As the square fills with people and the day asserts itself, you move on again. The night jobs fade, replaced by roles that function openly, yet still carry risk. Ahead, sharp scents of herbs and animal matter mingle, leading you toward shelves and jars and the promise of cures, both trusted and questionable. You follow the scent of crushed leaves and dried flowers into a narrow street where the sun finally reaches ground level. Light spills through open windows, catching on glass jars lined neatly on wooden shelves. Some hold powders the color of sand or ash. Others contain dark liquids or carefully preserved insects. You have arrived at the apothecary. Inside, the air is thick with mixed aromas, bitter, sweet, earthy, and sharp all at once. A man bends over a work table, grinding something with a mortar and pestle. The steady scrape of stone on stone feels almost meditative. He does not look up as you enter. His attention belongs fully to his work. Apothecaries bridge folk knowledge and emerging medical practice. Guild records show they are trained through long apprenticeships, learning to identify plants, prepare compounds, and advise patients. Physicians diagnose. Apothecaries supply. The boundary between the two shifts constantly. You glance at the shelves more closely. Dried frogs, beetle shells, powdered bone. Remedies here draw from plants, animals, and minerals alike. Some ingredients are effective, others rely on symbolism or tradition. People trust them all the same because alternatives are few. A curious detail from period recipe books stands out. Ground mummy, a substance scraped from ancient embalmed bodies, is sold in some regions as medicine. Whether it truly came from mummies or from more recent remains is unclear. Belief drives demand more than evidence. Debate continues among historians of medicine about how much apothecaries believed in the remedies they sold versus how much they simply met expectations. What seems clear is that many genuinely wanted to heal. They worked within the limits of their knowledge, observing patterns and outcomes over time. The apothecary finally looks up and nods politely, then returns to grinding. His hands are stained from years of contact with herbs and chemicals. He measures carefully, aware that too much or too little can harm rather than help. You notice a small scale nearby, its metal weights arranged with care. Precision matters, even in an age without modern chemistry. Experience teaches caution. A woman enters, clutching a cloth bundle. Her face shows worry more than illness. The apothecary listens, asks a few questions, then selects several jars. His voice is calm. Confidence comforts as much as cure. You step back, allowing the exchange to continue without you. As you leave, the layered scents cling to your clothes, following you into the street. You realize that medicine here is not a clean line between science and superstition. It is a braided path, built from observation, belief, and hope. The street ahead grows louder again, carrying the clatter of metal and the sound of voices raised in instruction. Another trade waits, one that blends grooming with blood and pain in a way that feels startlingly casual. You turn the corner, and the smell changes abruptly. Sharp iron, warm flesh, clean water tinged pink. A striped pole stands outside a small shop, its colors faded by sun and rain. Inside, a man sharpens a blade with slow, practiced strokes. You have reached the barber surgeon. This space feels familiar and unsettling at the same time. Benches line the wall, bowls sit ready, towels hang within easy reach. People come here for haircuts, shaves, and procedures that modern minds would place firmly in a hospital. At this point in history, the separation does not exist. Town records and guild charters show that barber surgeons are licensed professionals, trained through apprenticeships and regulated by local authorities. They cut hair, yes, but they also pull teeth, lance boils, set bones, and perform bloodletting. The red and white pole outside signals both blood and bandage. You watch as a customer settles into the chair, nervous but resigned. The barber speaks softly, reassuring him. A shallow bowl is positioned carefully. The blade flashes once. Blood flows. The man breathes steadily, eyes fixed on the wall. This is considered therapeutic, a way to restore balance to the body. A detail that often surprises people is how public these procedures are. Doors remain open. Passers-by glance in without shock. Pain is expected. It is not hidden. Healing here is practical, not private. There is disagreement among medical historians about how effective bloodletting truly was. In some cases, it may have provided relief. In others, it weakened patients further. What matters tonight is belief, combined with availability. Barber surgeons offer action, and action feels better than waiting. You notice the barber's hands, steady, cleaned between tasks with water and cloth, not sterile by modern standards, but careful nonetheless. Experience teaches which wounds fester and which close cleanly. The customer rises slowly, pale but upright. The barber binds the arm with practiced speed. Payment is exchanged. Life continues. The chair waits for the next person. You step back into the street, feeling the weight of how casually pain is woven into daily routines here. The next voice you hear will carry no blade, only words, shaping reality through sound alone. You walk on, letting the barber's doorway fall behind you, and the town opens its lungs fully now. Morning has arrived without ceremony. Sunlight spills across stone, catching dust in the air and turning it briefly to gold. Voices overlap everywhere. Vendors call out prices. Doors bang open. Somewhere a child cries, then laughs. Information moves quickly here, but not on paper. It moves through mouths. You hear him before you see him. A strong, practiced voice rises above the noise, clear and rhythmic. Words tumble out in measured bursts, each phrase shaped to carry. You follow the sound to a man standing at a crossroads, holding a staff topped with a small emblem. This is the town crier. He clears his throat and begins again, announcing a new decree from the council. Market hours adjusted, a fine for dumping refuse, a warning about counterfeit coins. Each notice is repeated slowly, twice, sometimes 3 times. Memory matters more than speed. People pause to listen, some nodding, others muttering quietly. In a world where literacy is limited, town criers serve as living notice boards. Municipal records describe them as official appointees, sometimes sworn in, sometimes paid per announcement. Accuracy is essential. A misquoted order can cause confusion, anger, even violence. You notice how he projects without shouting, using breath and posture rather than force. This is skill, learned over time. His voice must carry across crowds and through open windows. It must sound authoritative without becoming harsh. A lesser-known detail drifts into your thoughts. Some criers accompany announcements with bells or small drums to draw attention. Others dress in distinctive colours, so they are recognised instantly. Their presence becomes part of the town's rhythm. There is discussion among historians about how much power town criers truly held. Were they mere messengers, or could tone and emphasis shape public reaction? Standing here, listening to the subtle pauses and stresses he uses, you suspect the latter. A woman nearby leans toward her neighbour, whispering commentary between announcements. News spreads sideways as well as forward. The crier's words spark conversations that reshape meaning almost immediately. When he finishes, he lowers his staff and steps aside, letting the crowd flow again. His job is done until the next message arrives. You realize how fragile order would feel without voices like his, anchoring shared understanding in sound rather than ink. You move on with the crowd, carrying the echo of his announcements in your head. Ahead, the streets grow quieter again, leading toward darker doorways and risks that return you briefly to the edge of fear. You drift away from the busy crossroads, and into a quarter of the town people enter reluctantly, if at all. The air feels heavier here, not because of smell alone, but because of memory. Doors are marked with crude symbols. Some windows are shuttered tight even in daylight. A hush hangs over the street, broken only by the cough of someone unseen behind a wall. This is where illness lingers, and where a particular kind of courage is quietly bought and sold. You see them before you realize who they are. 2 figures move slowly from house to house, wearing simple protective clothing that has been soaked and dried many times. Their faces are uncovered, but each carries a bundle of herbs tied with string, held close to the nose when entering a doorway. These are plague bearers, or plague workers, people paid to enter infected homes when others will not. City account books from periods of epidemic list wages for such workers. They deliver food, remove bodies, burn bedding, and sometimes care for the sick. Their payment is higher than average, reflecting both danger and desperation. When disease spreads faster than fear, money becomes persuasion. You watch as one of them knocks, then waits. The door opens only a crack. A hand emerges, thin and trembling. The worker passes a small bundle inside, careful not to touch skin. Words are exchanged quietly. The door closes again. The worker steps back, breath held for a moment, longer than necessary. A detail that rarely appears in popular stories surfaces here. Some plague workers are survivors themselves, believed to be immune after recovery. Whether that immunity truly existed is uncertain, but the belief offers hope and justification. Others take the job simply because no alternatives remain. There is disagreement among medical historians about how effective these measures were in limiting spread. Isolation, fumigation, and removal of waste may have helped in some cases. In others, they arrived too late. What matters tonight is intent. These workers step toward danger so others can step away. You notice how people watch from behind shutters, eyes following every movement. Gratitude and fear share the same gaze. Contact is avoided. Even coins are sometimes dropped into vinegar before being handed over, an attempt at cleansing that feels both earnest and futile. The workers move on, leaving chalk marks on doors to indicate visits made. The street feels altered in their wake, as if the air remembers them. You stand still, absorbing the quiet bravery of this role. As you turn away, the sounds of healthier parts of town return slowly. Laughter, trade, routine. The contrast feels sharp. You carry with you the knowledge that survival often depends on those willing to enter places marked by warning rather than welcome. The road ahead leads downward again, toward water and silt, and the steady pull of the river. You follow the slope of the street as it descends toward the river, and the town sounds thin into something more open and echoing. Water reflects the pale sky in broken shards of light. The tide is on its way out, dragging debris with it, and the smell here is a mixture of mud, rust, and old wood soaked too many times to count. This is where mudlarks make their living. You step carefully along the riverbank, boots sinking slightly with each move. The ground gives under you, then holds, then gives again. It demands attention. A man crouches nearby, eyes fixed on the exposed silt as if reading a map only he understands. His hands move quickly, fingers probing, lifting, discarding. Mudlarks search for anything the river gives back. Lost coins, broken tools, bits of rope, nails. Sometimes something better, sometimes nothing at all. River trade is constant, and so is loss. What falls from boats or pockets does not vanish. It waits. Court records and poor relief accounts mention mudlarking as a marginal but recognized way to survive, often taken up by the very poor, the elderly, or children. It is dangerous work. The mud can trap legs. The tide can turn quickly. Sharp objects hide beneath the surface. A small detail surfaces that shifts your perspective. Some mudlarks specialize, learning where certain goods are more likely to appear based on trade patterns upstream, near shipyards, metal, near markets, coins, and pins. Knowledge matters as much as luck. There is discussion among social historians about whether mudlarking should be considered an occupation or a desperate adaptation. Standing here, watching the man pocket a bent nail with quiet satisfaction, the distinction feels thin. Survival rarely fits neat categories. A shout rings out farther down the bank as someone finds something worth showing. Laughter follows, quick and sharp, then fades as attention returns to the ground. Success here is fleeting. Celebration wastes time. You notice how the river ignores human effort entirely. It keeps moving, pulling, reshaping the shore. Mudlarks work with its rhythm, not against it. When the water begins to creep back, they will leave without argument. As the tide turns, you step back from the bank, shoes heavy and cold. The river swallows the exposed ground again, hiding whatever remains. You turn toward town, aware that opportunity here rises and falls with forces no one controls. Ahead, human negotiation replaces natural rhythm. Another profession waits, one built not on scavenging, but on arranging lives themselves. You leave the river behind and climb back toward the denser streets, where stone and timber lean close again, and voices overlap in softer tones. This part of town hums with conversation rather than labor. People linger here, talking longer than necessary, weighing words carefully. This is where arrangements are made, not goods exchanged. You have wandered into the world of the matchmaker. You notice her seated near a doorway, not calling out, not advertising. She waits. People come to her. A woman pauses, pretends to adjust her shawl, then slips inside. A moment later, a man follows, eyes down, expression guarded. Nothing about this looks romantic. It looks practical. Marriage here is rarely about love alone. It is about land, labor, alliances, and survival. Parish registers and legal contracts show marriages negotiated with attention to dowries, inheritance, and reputation. Matchmakers know these details better than most. They keep track of families, debts, tempers, and prospects. Inside the room, voices murmur. The matchmaker listens more than she speaks. When she does speak, her words are careful, measured. She suggests, never commands. Her power comes from information. Who drinks too much? Who owns a cow? Who needs help in the fields? who has already been quietly rejected twice. A detail that often surprises people is that matchmakers are not always women, though many are. Men take on the role as well, especially in trading communities, where travel spreads news quickly. The job requires memory and discretion above all else. There is disagreement among historians about how much influence matchmakers truly held versus how much they simply facilitated decisions already made. Watching the tension in that small room, you suspect influence grows when options are few. The woman who entered first emerges later, face unreadable. The man follows at a distance. They do not walk together. That too is part of the process. Appearances must be managed carefully. You move on, reflecting on how even the most intimate parts of life are shaped by negotiation here. Love may grow later, or not at all. What matters is continuity. Fields worked, children born, names carried forward. The street ahead feels quieter again, the air tinged with grain and animal presence. Another task waits, one that tests food not with taste, but with teeth. You follow the smell of grain and warm bread deeper into the town, where the street narrows again and the walls feel close enough to listen. Bakers are already busy, their ovens radiating steady heat that seeps into your skin. The air here is comforting at first, heavy with yeast and smoke, but beneath it lies tension. Food is safety, food is trust, and trust, in this world, must be tested. You stop near a bakery where loaves cool on wooden boards. Their crusts crack softly as they release heat, a quiet sound like distant embers settling. A man stands nearby, not dressed like a baker. His clothes are plain, his hands clean, his expression serious. At his feet, held loosely by a cord, is a small animal, a ferret, thin and alert, nose twitching. This is a food tester. Bread adulteration is a real fear here. Grain shortages, high taxes, and dishonest practices tempt bakers to stretch flour with fillers like chalk, ground peas, or even sawdust. Town ordinances spell out punishments for this, including fines, public shaming, and destruction of bad loaves. But enforcement requires proof. That proof sometimes comes from teeth. You watch as the man breaks off a piece of bread and holds it out. The ferret sniffs, then bites. Its reaction is immediate. It chews, pauses, then chews again. No distress, no rejection. The man nods slightly. The bread passes. Animal testing is used not because people believe animals are smarter, but because they are thought to be more sensitive. Bakers, brewers, and officials rely on animals to reveal bitterness, toxins, or harmful additives. Dogs, birds, and rodents are all used at different times. Their reactions become evidence. A detail preserved in guild anecdotes adds texture to the scene. Some towns keep official testing animals, cared for collectively, and brought out during inspections. Their health is watched closely. A sick tester undermines confidence just as much as bad bread. There is debate among historians about how effective these tests truly were. Animals react differently than humans, and some contaminants pass unnoticed. Yet the practice persists because it offers visible reassurance. People see the test happen. That visibility matters. You notice how the baker watches, hands clenched slightly, waiting for the verdict. His livelihood rests on this moment. A failed test could ruin him. A past one allows business to continue. Trust is fragile and constantly renewed. The tester moves on to the next stall, repeating the process. Bite, chew, observe, decide. The rhythm feels almost ceremonial. Food becomes law. Law becomes routine. You walk with him for a while, noticing how the crowd reacts. Some people watch closely. Others turn away, uninterested now that the system feels familiar. Trust becomes background noise once established. A less discussed aspect surfaces in your thoughts. Testing animals often live short, hard lives. Exposure accumulates, their usefulness fades. Replacement is accepted without ceremony. Utility outweighs sentiment. As you leave the bakery row, you feel the warmth fade and the street open slightly. The town shifts again, pulling you toward harsher smells and brighter fires. Stone dust begins to coat the air, and your throat tightens as you breathe. Another trade waits ahead, one that burns rock itself into usefulness. You step into air that scratches at the back of your throat almost immediately. The smell is dry and biting, like chalk and smoke mixed together. Fine white dust drifts across the road and settles on your clothes, dulling their color. Ahead, fires burn hot and steady. Their glow harsh even in daylight. This is where lime burners work. The kilns rise from the ground like squat stone towers, their openings glowing with contained fury. Inside, limestone is stacked carefully with layers of fuel, usually wood or charcoal. The fire burns for days, sometimes longer, until the stone itself changes. When it emerges, it is no longer limestone but quicklime, a substance that hisses and smokes when touched by water. Building accounts from monasteries, bridges, and city walls show how essential lime is. Mortar binds stone, plaster seals walls, whitewash brightens dark interiors, and is believed to purify spaces. None of it exists without this process. The work is foundational in every sense. You watch a lime burner approach one of the kilns, his face wrapped loosely in cloth. He moves carefully, aware that a wrong step or sudden breath could mean injury. Quicklime is dangerous. It burns skin, it blinds eyes, it can ignite moisture in flesh itself. This is not fear. This is knowledge learned through scars. He uses a long tool to draw material from the kiln, the heat radiating outward in waves you can feel even from a distance. The stone crumbles slightly as it is handled, transformed into something more brittle and volatile. He steps back, allowing it to cool before moving it again. Patience here prevents disaster. A detail from building manuals adds context. Lime must be slaked with water before use, a process that releases intense heat and steam. Done improperly, it can explode. Done correctly, it becomes workable paste. Skill lies not just in burning the stone, but in knowing when and how to tame it. There is disagreement among architectural historians about how standardized lime production was. Some argue techniques varied wildly by region, others point to shared methods across Europe. Watching this worker, you sense both tradition and improvisation at play. The lime burner wipes his brow, leaving a white streak across his skin. His clothes are permanently marked, stiff with residue. This work settles into the body over time, affecting lungs, eyes, and joints. Yet it continues because cities demand it. Growth depends on it. You notice carts nearby, waiting to carry cooled lime to construction sites. Cathedrals rising stone by stone. Homes repaired after winter. Graves lined neatly. Lime touches beginnings and endings alike. A younger worker tends the fire, feeding it carefully. He watches the flames with intense focus. Apprentices here learn through proximity, not theory. Mistakes are memorable, sometimes fatal. The fire teaches quickly. You step back as a gust of wind lifts dust into the air. It coats your tongue, dry and bitter. You swallow reflexively, uncomfortable. The lime burner does not react. His body has adapted. Yours has not. As you move away, the fires fade behind you, but the awareness stays. Civilization is not just built with hands and ideas, but with processes that reshape the natural world violently and deliberately. The road curves again, leading you toward quieter labor. The air sweetens slowly, carrying a different scent. Wax, flowers, warm earth. A gentler trade waits, humming softly with life. The harsh bite of lime dust fades as you walk, replaced by a gentler sweetness that feels almost like relief. The air softens. It carries the scent of crushed flowers, warm wax, and something alive and buzzing just beyond your hearing. You follow it instinctively, away from kilns and fire and toward low wooden hives set neatly along the edge of a garden. This is the quiet domain of the beekeeper. You slow your pace without being told to. Everything about this place encourages calm. The bees move with purpose but not panic, drifting from blossom to hive in looping paths that seem almost lazy. The keeper stands nearby, wrapped in thick cloth, face partially veiled, hands steady. There is no rush here. Rushing invites pain. Honey matters more in this world than you might first realize. Written household accounts and monastery inventories show it listed alongside grain and ale as a staple. Sugar is rare and expensive. Honey sweetens food, preserves fruit, and soothes illness. Wax, just as valuable, lights churches and homes alike. Candles carry prayers upward and mark time itself. You watch as the beekeeper lifts part of a hive carefully, exposing rows of honeycomb glowing amber in the light. The bees hum louder now, aware but not enraged. Smoke drifts gently from a small burner, calming them. This technique is ancient, passed through observation rather than instruction manuals. A detail from agricultural treatises surfaces. Beekeepers often speak to their bees, believing the insects must be informed of deaths, marriages, or changes in ownership. Whether this practice stems from superstition or simple habit is unclear. What matters is the relationship. These are not pests. They are partners. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how widespread professional beekeeping truly was versus small household hives. Evidence suggests both coexisted. Large estates maintain extensive apiaries, while villagers keep a few hives near gardens or orchards. Honey links rural and sacred life seamlessly. The keeper scrapes a small amount of wax free, placing it gently into a basket. Nothing is wasted. Even damaged comb is melted down and reused. Efficiency here feels almost reverent. You notice the keeper's hands bear old scars. Stings are inevitable. Over time, tolerance builds. Pain dulls. Respect sharpens. Bees demand attentiveness. They punish carelessness immediately. A soft breeze moves through the flowers, and the bees adjust without complaint. You realize how different this labor feels from others you have seen. No filth, no blood, no fire. And yet, it carries its own risks and responsibilities. A lost hive means hunger, darkness, and lost income. The keeper replaces the hive covering and steps back, watching for a moment, longer than necessary. Pride shows in small ways here, in order, in patience, in restraint. As you leave the apiary behind, the hum fades gradually, replaced by the familiar sounds of human movement. You carry with you the sense that not all medieval work is harsh by necessity. Some tasks align gently with the rhythms already present in the world. The road ahead stretches outward, beyond town walls again. It leads toward dusty paths and distant shrines. Another role waits, one that trades knowledge of roads and danger for safe passage and spiritual reassurance. You leave the ordered calm of the hives and follow a road that stretches outward like a promise and a warning at the same time. The ground here is hard-packed, worn smooth by centuries of feet, hooves, and wheels. Dust rises with each step, catching in the light. Far ahead, the road curves toward hills and forests where the town's influence thins and uncertainty grows. This is where pilgrim guides earn their living. You spot one of them easily, not because of fine clothes or loud calls, but because of familiarity. He stands near a roadside cross, leaning on a stout staff polished smooth by use. His cloak is weathered, patched with care rather than poverty. This is a man who knows distance, who knows danger, who knows when to stop and when to push on. Pilgrimage defines much of medieval movement. People travel to shrines, seeking healing, forgiveness, or gratitude. Church records and travel accounts describe steady flows of pilgrims moving between towns and holy sites. The roads are dangerous. Bandits wait. Illness spreads. Paths vanish in bad weather. Guides reduce risk, not through force, but through knowledge. You walk beside him for a time, listening as he speaks to a small group gathered nearby. His voice is calm, confident, shaped by repetition. He describes where water can be found, where shelter waits, where travelers should keep their purses hidden. This is not spiritual guidance. It is survival advice. A detail from pilgrimage manuals surfaces. Guides often carry badges or tokens from shrines they know well, proof of experience rather than authority. These objects build trust faster than words. Reputation travels ahead of them. There is discussion among historians about whether pilgrim guides were seen as devout helpers or opportunistic escorts. Evidence suggests both existed. Some guide out of faith, others out of profit. Most likely walk somewhere between the two. Belief and business rarely stay separate for long. The guide gestures toward the horizon, describing a stretch of road known for flooding. He advises timing. He advises patience. The group listens closely. For many, this journey marks the longest they will ever take. Mistakes feel larger out here. You imagine walking these roads without help, without maps, without certainty. Suddenly, the guide's value becomes obvious. He transforms the unknown into a series of manageable steps. The group begins to move, and you fall back, letting them go ahead. Dust rises again, catching sunlight, then settling. The guide's staff taps rhythmically against stone, marking pace and presence. As the road bends away, you turn back toward town once more. Your path returns inward, toward daily routines and quieter struggles. The next role waiting for you deals not with journeys of the soul, but with the simple act of carrying life itself in buckets. You return toward the town as the day settles into its steady middle hours. The sun hangs higher now, and with it comes thirst. You feel it in your mouth, a dryness that makes you swallow without meaning to. Around you, the town moves on this same quiet need. People cook, animals drink, brewers work. None of it happens without water. And water, here, does not simply appear. You hear the splash before you see the well. A bucket rises, dripping steadily, then bumps against stone as it is hauled over the lip. A woman tips the water into a large clay vessel and wipes her hands on her apron. Her shoulders shift as she lifts, used to the weight. This is the work of the water bearer. Clean water is precious and unreliable. Wells run dry. Rivers carry sickness. Rain comes when it chooses. Town ordinances describe strict rules around water sources, who may draw from where, and at what times. In larger towns, water bearers carry water from wells or springs to households that cannot easily reach them. They are paid by the load, by the day, or by agreement. You walk alongside as she balances the vessel against her hip and begins moving through the street. The water sloshes gently with each step. She keeps her pace even, careful not to spill. Every drop matters. Spilled water is wasted labor. A detail from urban records sharpens the picture. In some places, water bearers are assigned specific routes and customers, ensuring fair access and reducing conflict. In others, competition is fierce. Fights break out at wells during drought. Guards are posted. Water becomes power. You notice how people step aside as she passes, not out of reverence, but out of habit, interrupting her. Risks, spills, and anger. She stops at a doorway, pouring carefully into waiting jugs. Payment is exchanged quickly. No conversation. The work continues. There is ongoing discussion among historians about how clean medieval water truly was. Some wells are well maintained. Others are dangerously close to latrines or refuse pits. People know water can make them sick, even if they do not understand how. Boiling helps. Ale helps. But water remains essential, especially for cooking and washing. The bearer moves on, muscles working steadily beneath her sleeves. This job reshapes the body over time. Strong arms, compressed joints, a spine that learns balance. Children often help, carrying smaller buckets until they grow into the weight. You think about how invisible this labor becomes. Thirst quenched, meals cooked. No one lingers on the person who made it possible. The satisfaction is indirect. The necessity is constant. At another stop, a man complains about the amount. She responds calmly, adjusts the pour slightly, then moves on. Disputes are common. Measurements are judged by eye. Trust and suspicion mix freely. As you follow her route, you feel the sun warming stone, the air thickening. Sweat forms easily now. The town smells different in daylight. Less secrecy, more urgency. The work adapts. When her vessel empties, she turns back toward the well without pause. There will be another load, and another. You let her go, watching her figure shrink into the crowd. You continue walking, thinking about how survival depends on movement as much as creation. Carrying, hauling, transporting. The next role waiting for you involves children, learning these lessons far earlier than feels comfortable. You walk on as the heat of the day settles fully into the town, pressing down on roofs and shoulders alike. The streets feel busier now, louder, threaded with overlapping errands and voices. Somewhere nearby, a hammer strikes metal again and again, steady and patient. The sound pulls you toward a workshop door that stands wide open, as if nothing inside needs hiding. A boy works there, no older than 10 or 11. His hands are small, but they move with certainty. He pumps a bellows rhythmically, feeding air into a glowing fire, while a man shapes metal at the anvil. Sparks jump and fade before they can reach the floor. The boy does not flinch. He has learned where to stand. This is apprenticeship, the backbone of medieval labor. Children begin work early, often as soon as their bodies can manage simple tasks. Contracts preserved in town archives show children bound to masters for years at a time, learning a trade in exchange for food, shelter, and instruction. Childhood here is not a protected space. It is a preparation. You watch as the boy pauses, wipes his forehead with a sleeve already darkened by soot, then resumes. He does not complain. This routine has shaped his days for as long as he can remember. His world is measured in tasks completed, corrections given, mistakes avoided. A detail from apprenticeship agreements adds weight to the scene. Masters are expected to provide moral guidance as well as technical skill. They discipline, teach, and sometimes punish. In theory, the relationship is paternal. In practice, it varies widely. Kindness and cruelty both find room here. You move on and notice other children at work. A girl carries bundles of reeds toward a thatcher's yard. Two younger boys sort scraps outside a tannery, their faces pinched against the smell. Another child runs messages between shops, earning coins one delivery at a time. These are not exceptions. They are the norm. There is discussion among social historians about whether medieval children experienced childhood differently or simply earlier adulthood. Evidence suggests they played when they could, laughed freely, and formed friendships. Yet responsibility arrived quickly, shaped by need rather than choice. You pause near a carpenter's shop, where a boy carefully sands a plank, guided by an older apprentice. His movements are slow and deliberate. A slip could mean injury. Tools do not forgive inexperience. Learning happens through repetition and close observation, not instruction manuals. You think about how identity forms here. A child becomes what they are taught. The baker's son bakes. The cooper's daughter learns to shape wood. Mobility exists, but it is limited. Skills pass through families like heirlooms. A quieter detail surfaces. Some apprentices never finish their terms. Illness intervenes. Masters die. Wars disrupt contracts. Those children drift into other labor, carrying partial skills that shape odd careers. Survival improvises. You feel the weight of this realization as you continue walking. The town depends on continuity, on hands learning what other hands once did, on knowledge preserved not in books, but in muscle memory. As the afternoon stretches on, shadows lengthen slightly, and the energy of the town begins to shift again. Work slows, bodies tire, yet the day is not finished. One last understanding waits for you, not tied to a single job, but to the web they form together. You head toward a rise overlooking the town, feeling the accumulated impressions of the hours you have walked. The strange jobs no longer feel strange. They feel necessary. They feel human. You climb the gentle rise just beyond the last row of houses, where the town finally reveals itself as a whole. From here, roofs overlap like worn shingles, chimneys breathing thin lines of smoke into the afternoon air. The sounds reach you, softened and blended. Hammers, voices, bells, animals, all of it layered into a single living hum. You stop walking and simply stand, letting it settle. From this distance, the town looks orderly, solid, enduring. It is easy to imagine it standing this way forever. But now you know better. You have walked its hidden routes. You have followed its waste, its water, its food, its dead, its children, its fear, and its hope. What holds this place together is not stone or law or faith alone. It is labor, constant, often invisible labor. You think back to the night workers, moving quietly while others slept, the men hauling what no one wanted to see, the stamping feet in fulling vats, the still figure standing in cold marsh water, letting leeches feed, the careful hands scraping hides where the river runs foul, the rat catcher listening more than looking, each of them keeping the town just a little safer, a little cleaner, a little more livable. You remember the jobs shaped by belief, the sin-eater taking on burdens no one else dared to name, the apothecary grinding remedies from faith and observation mixed together, the jester speaking truth through laughter because truth alone was too sharp, the pilgrim guide turning danger into distance, measured and survived. You recall the roles tied to structure and order, the executioner practicing precision not for cruelty, but for control, the town crier shaping shared reality with his voice, the plague workers stepping into marked houses when others stepped back, each one standing at a boundary most people preferred to forget. You think of the quieter labor too, the beekeeper tending sweetness and light, the lime burner transforming stone into shelter and tomb alike, the water-bearer hauling life through the streets one careful step at a time, the children learning all of this early, their small hands already patterned by work that would define them. Seen together, these jobs no longer feel strange. They feel like answers, responses to a world without systems, without buffers, without distance between need and consequence. Everything here is close. Bodies, waste, danger, survival. The people you met do not romanticize their work. They endure it. They refine it. They pass it on. There is still disagreement among historians about how medieval people felt about their lives overall. Some sources emphasize hardship and suffering. Others point to resilience, humor, and community. Standing here, looking down at the town, breathing steadily below you, both feel true. Difficulty and dignity exist side by side. You realize something else too. Many of these jobs persist in new forms. Waste still must be removed. Food still tested. Water still carried. Children still learn through work. The distance between then and now is thinner than it feels when you stop to look closely. The sun dips slightly, softening the light across the roofs. Shadows stretch. The day begins to loosen its grip, just as the night once did when you first entered the streets. The town will change shifts again soon. Other hands will take over. The cycle continues without announcement. You take one last look, then turn away from the view, carrying the weight of it with you. Not heavy, but grounding. Now, let yourself slow down. The sounds fade gently as you step back from the town in your mind. The images soften at the edges. The smells drift away. You are no longer walking on stone or earth. You are resting. Your breathing evens out, matching a calmer rhythm. There is nothing you need to do now. No work waiting, no danger approaching. Just the steady comfort of knowing that people, across time, have always found ways to hold the world together, even when it asked difficult things of them. Let that thought settle. Let the town grow quiet. Let the night return, slow and kind. Sweet dreams.